Hello, New Garden students. I hope you're having a good day today. Welcome back to another teaching video for ya. This week we're starting a new series called The You Effect, and I'm really excited about it. I think it's going to be really good. We're going to be talking about influence and the way you affect other people. As usual, we will be on Zoom on Wednesday at 7 p.m. You can find the link for that Zoom meeting at newgarden.church/chat. Also, just a reminder for you, if you forgot, this Sunday is Mother's Day. So if you need to make a little homemade card or something for a mother in your life, here's your reminder. Sunday is Mother's Day. I'm reminding myself too. So I'm glad you're back with us today. Excuse me. Let's get started. So I want you to think about, in your mind, who is your most fun friend? The person that when they are around, it's a party. They are making sure everyone is laughing and having a good time, and they want everyone to be having the most fun possible. I think about my friend Erin, and she is hilarious. She always has everyone laughing. You never know what she's going to say, but you know it's going to be really funny. She's someone that you want to be around, right? A person that draws people in and makes people laugh and have fun. Or maybe let's think about a person who has been influential in your life in some way, who has had an effect on you, even if they don't know it. There was a girl when I was in youth group growing up she was several years older than me, and we weren't even really friends, but I liked being around her. She was the kind of person in youth group that thought youth group was cool, so I felt permission to think youth group was cool too. She was very invested and always had good stuff to say, but also was super fun and kind and fun to be around. And I don't think she had any idea that she was having an effect on me just by being at church on a Wednesday night or speaking up in class on Sunday, something like that. But she had an impact on me, even though she didn't know it. And the truth is, we all have an effect on other people. I know you might be thinking that maybe you don't have an effect on other people. Maybe you're a person that thinks nobody is really paying attention to what you're doing, or nobody really takes into consideration the things you have to say. And especially maybe right now when we're all stuck inside with just a few people, it's hard to feel like we're having an effect on someone. You also might be a person who can pretty easily identify the effect that you have on other people. Maybe you've been in a position of leadership at school or at church or on a team in some sort of group, and you know that people look to you and are affected by you. And wherever you fall on that, you do have an impact on people. You have an influence on the people that you are around. Whether you know it or not, people are affected by you. And that's why we're talking about the You Effect. That's what this series is called. And we're going to be talking about a story today in the Bible where a guy had a huge effect on a lot of people, and he never could have predicted it. So we're going to be looking at John chapter 6. And we know that John was one of Jesus's closest friends. He called him the disciple whom he loved. And that John traveled around with Jesus throughout his ministry, and they were super, super tight. He was part of his inner circle. And we know that Jesus had crowds that were following him all the time because he was performing miracles and he was teaching. And there were crowds that were going around with him. So we're going to be looking at this particular day in the ministry of Jesus where he had a big crowd around him and he had a lot of influence on the people around him. So we're looking at John chapter 6, starting in verse 1. John said, "Sometime after this, Jesus crossed to the far shore of the Sea of Galilee, And a great crowd of people followed him because they saw the signs he had performed by healing the sick. Then Jesus went up on a mountainside and sat down with his disciples. The Jewish Passover festival was near. When Jesus looked up and saw a great crowd coming toward him, he said to Philip, "Where shall we buy bread for all these people to eat?" He asked this only to test him, for he already had in mind what he was going to do. So we can see this scene, right? Like there's a ton of people and they're following Jesus, and he's like, they're going to be hungry soon. And he looks to one of his disciples and says, "We don't have any food for them. What do you think we should do?" And if I were Philip, I would be like, "Jesus, shouldn't you be answering that question? What am I going to do? You're the guy that performs miracles and does all this wild, amazing stuff." But Philip answered him in John 6:7. He said, "It would take more than half a year's wages to buy enough bread for each one to have a bite." So there are over 5,000 people, okay, around Jesus right now. And Philip's like, it would be so expensive to try to feed all these people. Like, this is not going to be possible. And then in verse 8, another of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, spoke up. "Here is a boy with 5 small barley loaves and 2 small fish, but how far will they go among so many?" So apparently they had found this boy who had brought like a sack lunch with him that day. You can imagine his ancient lunchbox that maybe his mom packed that morning and was like, "All right, go do whatever you're doing today. Here's your lunch." 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. But among 5,000 plus people, what good is that going to do? So going on in verse 10, Jesus said, "Have the people sit down." There was plenty of grass in that place, and they sat down. About 5,000 men were there. That's not including women and children. Jesus then took the loaves, gave thanks, and distributed to those who were seated as much as they wanted. He did the same with the fish. When they had all had enough to eat, he said to the disciples, "Gather the pieces that are left over. Let nothing be wasted." So they gathered them and filled 12 baskets with the pieces of the 5 barley loaves left over by those who had eaten. After the people saw the sign Jesus performed, they began to say, "Surely this is the prophet who is come into the world." So we started this story with no food, right? Then we found a guy who had 5 pieces of bread and 2 fish in his little lunchbox. And then Jesus blessed it, and it fed thousands of people, and they still had 12 baskets left over from that guy's sack lunch. So I don't know about you, but I have so many questions about what actually this day looked like. Like, what? Were they just breaking off a piece of bread and passing it around and it just never got smaller? Or did Jesus create like this buffet line and they could all come through? Like, I want to know what this looked like. But also a question that I want to ask you is, who do you think had the biggest impact in this passage? Obviously, we know that Jesus had a huge impact in this passage. This would not have been possible without Jesus. He was able to perform this miracle of multiplying this food and feeding thousands of people who were with him. Or maybe the disciples had the biggest impact in this passage. They found like the way to the solution. They were like, "Jesus, here's a guy and he's got some food. I don't know, it's not much, but here it is." Or maybe it was the boy who didn't have much, but he was willing to give it. He was willing to offer what he had for the good of the people around him. And I think it is the boy who had the most impact and influence in this whole story. He did not take the stage. He was not preaching that day. He didn't perform a miracle himself. He wasn't doing like a big showy anything at all. He came with what he had, which was his lunchbox, and he influenced thousands of people just by offering what he had. So what I want you to know today is that you have more of an effect than you think. I bet that boy did not wake up that day thinking that he was going to be part of a miracle. We don't know this guy's name, you know? He was not like a big headline in the Gospel of John. Like, he didn't even get his name in the book. But we know this story, right? This is one of Jesus's most iconic miracle stories. And it was because this boy offered what he had. He was young. He was probably around your age. And he just came and said, yes, like, I don't know what you're going to do with this, but I'll let you have it and you can bless it. And I hope it is influential and I hope it blesses people. So you have more of an effect than you think. So what I want you to be thinking about is, who in your life do you have an effect on? Right now, it's probably the people who are immediately around you. So the people in your house, your family, that is who you probably have the most effect on right now. But if we look maybe a little larger, maybe people that you interact with on social media, you have an effect on those people too. When you go back to school, you have an effect on your classmates, on your teammates, on your teachers. The people that we interact with on a regular basis, we have an effect on those people. So just imagine what God could do through you if we consider the effect that we have on the people around us. So if we're going to identify the who, think about who you have an effect on. Your siblings, your followers, your parents, the people that you talk to on a regular basis. Identify the need. What do people around you need? Do they need encouragement? Do they need someone to listen to them? Do they need some of your time? What is it? And then finally, we can identify what you can do to help, and then do it. Identify the way you can have an impact on the people in your life for the better, to be a positive effect on the lives of those around you. So we know that we can be effective. We can be an impact, influential in the lives of people around us. And I want you to think about who has been a positive impact in your life. Who has been influential to you? What did that look like? How did that person affect you? Did that person know they were having an effect on you? Because so often people have an effect on us and they don't even know, but we forget that we have an effect on other people that we don't know about. And that is why it is so important to consider this. I remember for my whole life growing up, my mom would say, like, people are watching you. You don't know it, but people are watching you. And so the decisions you make are important. The way that you live is important. And not to be like creepy and people are spying on you and like keeping tabs on you, but like, you have an influence. You have an effect on people, even if you don't know it. And we're going to keep talking about that on Zoom on Wednesday at 7. And just like taking this idea into that, you have an impact on a Zoom call. You showing up on a Zoom call has an effect on other people. Let it be a positive one. Showing up is huge. That is the first step. And just like I was talking about the girl in youth group who she doesn't know she had an impact on me, you showing up on a Zoom call might make someone else feel encouraged, might make them feel included and empowered. And so that's a really cool thing. And that is a way that you can have an effect way more than you think. So I hope that we will see you on Zoom at 7 on Wednesday, and we will talk more about the influence that we have on other people. So see you then. And are you okay?
Yeah, fine. Got some water down the wrong hole. You can keep going.
Okay.